So we're talking today about Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ in us, or Christ the Jesus in us. And the word Christ was a title, and it meant anointed one. It meant Messiah. And the word Jesus comes from the Hebrew word, which is Yeshua or Yeshoshua, which actually Yeshua was like a nickname for Yeshoshua. So there really wasn't, back a long time ago, there was no Jesus running around. Nobody ever heard the word. That's the name that we came up with, because that was probably an easier word for us to say. So now we have Jesus. I can remember the first time I was in Mexico or something, and I heard somebody that was Jesus, and it's like, Jesus. And I can remember getting a cab driver named Jesus, and I'm thinking, oh, this must be really special. I'm riding with Jesus. And of course, there's like 6 million Jesuses. I'm thinking I had like the one special experience. Traditional religion believes that Jesus was this God incarnate, and he was the only one, and that because he lived, that the people that were sinners and that were born in sin and that were just really messed up had salvation. And if they did the right things and they said the right things, then they were saved. They believed that Jesus was born on Christmas and that he was a rabbi. Now, in New Thought, we think something different. We don't think of Jesus as the great exception. We think of him as the great what? Example. He was not the great exception. He was the great example for us to follow. And we believe that heaven is not a place to be gained, and that we don't have to, because we were not born in sin. We're not sinners. That we're innocent, and so we don't have to go through all of that, because if there's not a problem, I heard you say this morning, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The aphorism. We're not broke. We don't have to be fixed. We don't have to be saved, because we're okay now. And that's the beauty of what the message through New Thought is. It's the new thought, because the message that was carrying the culture was not applicable to the truth of the message of Jesus, because it was not the message of love. A conditional presentation of God in the world is not applicable, because it makes no sense whatsoever. And yet, we continue to have religions that are founded on and predicated on the idea of fear and sacrifice and pain and burden. And there's not anything wrong with that. It's just not very effective. It's not wrong, but it is crazy. It's crazy. It's just totally crazy. It is harmful. It is harmful. And the reason that I say it is not wrong, because we all understand that the way life cuts, the way it hits, the way we live it day to day, always has something in it that's very powerful and very potent and very applicable. As soon as I figure out that I'm the person that's stabbing my hand, I'm going to want to stop doing that. That's the way it is with religion. I just hadn't figured it out, that they're stabbing themselves. But I don't want to make myself better than other people, because that's just something that is really easy to do, and I'm going to talk about that. There are 3 kinds of theology. One kind of theology is process theology, and that's when we talk about our lives as terms of, in here you're called the Church of Practical Christianity. That's the process of living this in our everyday lives. For example, let's say I go down and I meet someone that's homeless, and I find out that they're not derelict, that they're not stupid, that they're not all these things I thought they were, that they are a smart, intelligent person who, after a certain number of things, ended up on the street. And so from then on, maybe I'm not looking at homeless people the same way. That's process theology, how we change our minds through our life experiences. Then there's a doctrinal theology, in which I'm going to look at the historical aspects of life. What happened to Jesus in his life, and study the scriptures and go through them and see what translation says over here and over here. And we've got a lot of theologians. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, for the most part, for the most people, it's boring. But not everybody. But for a lot of us, it really is. There are exciting aspects of it, but in terms of that, it's boring because it's so intellectual that it really doesn't help us in our day-to-day lives. And then there's mystical theology. And mystical theology, it's a living theology in which the very light and life and love of the nature of Jesus the Christ lives in us as peace, as love, as power. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little of my experience through process philosophy. And even though this can be problematic, because what it often does is it can be ego-driven. And I have given I can remember I met one person who stopped going to my church. I had a church 15 years ago, and I just thought I was so wonderful, and I told about my mystical experiences and how great I was, and I said, well, why don't you go anymore? And she says, because there's just too much Ann in it. I listened to her and I said, you know what, you're right. I couldn't say, boy, you're a bad person. It's like, yeah, I really am wrapped up into myself a lot of times, and it gets to be too much. So here's my story, and you're going to get some you're going to get animized today. And you've probably heard this story because I tell it frequently. When I was very young, I had an experience, and I just pieced this together. When I was 4, I had my tonsils out, and I had what is called maybe an out-of-body or near-death experience, and I don't remember too much about it except going through a tunnel. But what I do know that I had this urge to know what was bigger than life. And the only place I knew that you might want to go and find something out about that was church. And my mother, even though I was born to a Christian family, my mother was divorced, and that was very not Christian at the time because Christians did not get divorced in the 50s, early 50s. My mother really didn't go out that much. After this awakening, I started dragging my mother to church, except for the fact she would drop me off. And she would drop me off at church, and I would go, and she got involved in it, and I was very big in the church for a long time. And 20 years later, after this search, and being really good, because I thought if I was just really, really good, good. I mean, I just carried it to the max everywhere I could. So sappy, so sweet, so positive. I was miserable. This was like in 1970s. This plan didn't work out. And I was at my wit's end because everything, and not only had been really good, but I had lived out society's promises of everything feeling okay. Money, prestige, beautiful home, married, family, all this stuff. I had all this stuff, miserable, totally miserable. So at this point I did what only a smart person would do at this point, and that was that I surrendered. I let go. Okay, I can't go any further here. I mean, I had been through a psychic carnival that you couldn't imagine. I had meditated, going to meditation by that time. I mean, I was doing everything I'd been through Eastern literature, everything. Traveling around the world, body shaking, just all kinds of stuff. And you think that maybe that would give you something, because it was kind of stuff everybody's trying to have out-of-body experiences, trying to have mystical experiences. It's like, hey folks, this doesn't buy you anything. No peace of mind, nothing. All you do is you feel exhausted because you've been flying around the world not knowing what the heck it was about all night long. I mean, it's more craziness. So I gave up. I just surrendered. I said, I don't know. I gave up. And so what happens, how many of you had the surrender experience? You just hit the wall, surrender, and it almost always works. I wasn't doing it as a technique. I just simply did not know what else to do. And I let go. And there was an illumination, because when there was not me involved constantly trying to figure it out, there was something else left. Me as a personality was not left. There was something else left, and I felt this illumination and this release and this love that was flowing through me, and it was just so cool, and it lasted for months. It was just so powerful and awesome and miraculous and beautiful. I had been attending a church at this time, and I went to my minister and I said, what's going on here? I don't understand. I said, I've really got the God part, because I'm figuring this love is the God part. I said, but I don't get the Jesus part. And he said something that I thought was so amazing. He said, don't worry about it. He said, look, just hang around and you'll get it. He said, it's not really anything I can give to you. You got to get your own experience from this, which was so much my experience from childhood. I was always in a church that said explore and examine. And he said, what we are not is a fundamentalist church. And I will not tell you 1, 2, 3, and then you've got it, because you have to get it yourself. So I went out to get it myself. And so one of the first things I did was I decided I was going to visit the sick. That's what the early Christians did. They went in and they healed the lepers, and they were so revolutionary because they were the first free medical care that people had. It was healing and taking care of the sick. That's what they were about. So I go to the hospital and I'm thinking, okay, here I am. I'm going to be talking to the sick. I can't heal the sick. I already figured, I know I can't heal the sick, but maybe there's a healing, another kind of healing that can occur. So I would go in, and I remember I went in and I talked to the first person. These were people in our church that were in the hospital, went to a large church. Something happened in which when I related to them, it wasn't me who thought I was really special and wasn't I great. There was something much more powerful that related to them, and it was this unconditional love that was moving through me, and I knew that they could feel it too. It seemed like it was coming through my eyes. It was like, I don't know how to explain it, but all of a sudden my eyes are like the eyes of love. And then something through my heart, it's like, oh my gosh, in my heart, it's something. Stuff was moving through me, and they were feeling it. And so I thought, I think I'm getting this, Jesus. I think I understand what this Christ stuff is about. I think I'm getting it. I think I understand how to be that love. Not that I turned it on, but it just came, it flowed naturally. There was no technique. Okay, go in, do 1, 2, 3, love starts flirting out your eyes and heart. That wasn't happening. But something was happening. And I had a dream one night, and I was lying in bed, and over in the corner of the room, there was a cross. And through this cross came this amazing light. It was bright. And I looked at that, and it was not a wooden cross that was set in concrete. You just looked at it and it was dead. It was not moving. This was a dynamic cross. This was alive. This was bright. This was illuminated. And so I walked over to the cross, and behind the cross was a mirror. And the light receded, and there was Jesus from the head up. And Jesus was turning around. And as I looked at this dynamic again, it wasn't a picture of Christ that was dead, like this image, but it was a moving, limited image of Christ. And as it turned around, I could see that the picture of that Christ was me. It was me. The image, it was shifted and morphed, but as I looked at it, it was me and Christ. And it goes, oh my gosh, I am the Christ. I think I'm getting what he was trying to say when he said, I can't tell you what it is. You got to find out on your own. And as I had these experiences, what always comes up is the ego, and it still is up. And it goes something like this, and that is, I have this special knowledge, and so therefore I'm better or more advanced than you are. And it's very subtle because, of course, I'm trying to be really sweet and good and spiritual. So I can't really afford to look at it that much, even though I might get these little snips of that it's there, but it's there. But in 1980, I started studying the Course in Miracles, and I went about it like I did everything. I immersed myself in it. I was just crazed with the Course in Miracles. And what the Course in Miracles had to talk about was it talked about forgiveness. It's not necessary, but it's a tool to restore your sanity. It talked about replacing love with fear, removing those obstacles to fear. And it talked about defining the ego and then leading the ego away from itself. And finally, it talked about the idea of being special. I did not really like that. I didn't get it. I didn't understand. What do you mean I'm special? I'm special. It took me a long time to get my specialness going here because I thought I was such a worm. It was like, no, it's not that kind of special. It means I am special, but you are special too. Everyone has the same amount of grace and love and power. We're on a level playing field, regardless of what we've studied or what our knowledge is, how much we know or how much we don't know. And so the third experience, I think, in learning that was I had a dream one night, and in the dream I was in prison. And I'm thinking, yeah, I shouldn't be in prison. I'm such a good person, and I study the Course in Miracles. I study it all the time. I do all the lessons, and I apply them avidly. When I see somebody and they're being mean to me, I reframe it as, this is a call for love. I don't go down, I don't get mad at them. I'm really good. So the prison guard is standing at the gate, and I say, I study A Course in Miracles. I probably shouldn't even be here. And the guard looked at me and said, I study A Course in Miracles. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Specialness was like, no, I was not special. It didn't mean that I could get relief from my own crazy world because I studied the Course in Miracles, but not that I was special. Maybe I'm unique in some ways, but I'm not better than other people. And then the third thing happened when I was robbed at gunpoint. And that was kind of a taking back because I had thought that I could protect myself from everything because I knew metaphysics and I knew that thought was creative and that nothing bad was going to happen to me because I thought good thoughts. And then I was robbed at gunpoint. And so then I tried to figure out how to keep my thoughts so this would never happen again. I was going to make it not happen again. And it takes a tremendous amount of energy to try to keep something bad from happening to you. People go, that's based in fear, and people get very paranoid. It was a trying experience to be robbed at gunpoint and to be injured. I couldn't really control whether that was going to happen or not. And one day I was studying the Course in Miracles, and I opened it up to basically the lesson that I'm not a body. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm spending all of this time and this energy and this effort trying to protect my body, and I'm not a body. I want to take care of my body, but I'm not going to be able to guarantee that something bad is not going to happen to this body. Something bad is probably going to happen to this body. It is. So you got to let go. But who I am, nothing bad can ever destroy or take away who I am. May do something to the body, but not who I am. And I was able to let go of that in many ways. So that ends my personal story about growth in terms of Jesus Christ and how that was living through me. And the reason the Course in Miracles was supposedly written by Jesus. I don't know whether that's true or not, but supposedly that happens, and so I'm including that in my story. In terms of contemporary metaphysics, we have a lot going on with what's called the Christ consciousness, especially now. I've opened up so many emails, and we've got things going on about the shifting of consciousness in terms of the 2012. We had 1212. Just it's constantly things have been going on. I mean, everywhere I turn, there's a new meditation. There's technology that connects all of us through internet, through special events. And so I received this thing about the 1212 there was a 1212 meditation, and it basically says that what happened on 1212 is that this is the awakening of the Christ consciousness. And so that we're moving from being X number of strands of DNA, I don't know how many that is, to being 12 strands of DNA. And we're moving from our, 8 chakra system to 12 chakra system, that something is happening, that something's coming in. And I don't know what it is, but I can tell you that when energies start moving really deeply, and consciousness moves deeply into matter, we feel it and we start either figuring out what it is or making stuff up. But it's not like nothing is happening. It's just that we want to explain it. That's why we have so many stories in our history, because energy starts to move in consciousness, and it starts to move in matter, and it starts to be in our bodies, and we start trying to tell stories about what it is, because we're story people. We're going to relate, we're going to figure out what it is. So something is happening, I cannot possibly tell you what it is. In addition to this, we've got things happening like we've had Sandy, and people laughed at Al Gore when he said that New York City could be underwater, and now it is. And then we had the shooting this past week, this mass murder. But in spite of all of this amazing, amazing stuff, we have people reaching out to share the burden and reaching in to find courage to continue to live life on a day-to-day basis without being hopeless. We have people reacting and responding in ways that are so different from lives that are based in fear. We have people reacting to these things in love. And so I know that something is happening. So if you were to ask me, what is this Jesus Christ? I can't really tell you. I don't know. What I would have to say to you is what my minister, Joe Griffiths, said to me. And you're just going to have to find out for yourself. But thank you for listening to my experience of it. So be it. Thank you very much.